What's up, y'all? Welcome to Tabletop Bros. Today we're going to be taking a look at the brand new Death Guard Combat Patrol. We got a brand new Death Guard Codex, and to go along with it, a brand new Combat Patrol box set. So we're going to take a look at the models included, the rules, and the overall viability of this as a Combat Patrol, competitive against other Combat Patrols, and just for fun. So the new Death Guard Combat Patrol is called the Maggot Lords. So first we have Shalgar the Putrid, he's going to be leading the Combat Patrol. And then we also have Septimal Fulg, another character in the Combat Patrol. Followed by 3 Deathshroud Terminators, 7 Plague Marines, and 1 Chaos Rhino. So overall, pretty nice box set right here. The inclusion of a Rhino troop transport to get the Plague Marines around in, and then a character to join that unit, and then also a Terminator character that can operate independently or with the Deathshroud Terminators. Pretty nice overall. Rhinos are extremely good action monkeys. They're very viable in smaller and larger games of Warhammer 40,000. And then of course, any Terminators, including a Terminator character in Combat Patrol, is going to be very powerful. And then we also know this box set is going to be $170 USD, and you're typically going to be saving around 25 to 30% with your Combat Patrol over picking up the individual units. So if you're going to start a Death Guard army or expand on an existing force, Combat Patrol is an excellent way to do it. So let's take a look at the rules inside. Alright, so we have the Combat Patrol of Maggot Lords. So we're going to have our abilities, Nurgle's Gift, and then the Contagion range. And then we're also going to have a default enhancement or an optional secondary enhancement you'll be able to choose between. And then we'll also have a default secondary objective and an optional secondary objective you'll be able to choose between. And then we have 3 stratagems. And one really nice thing about the Combat Patrols is you basically build the box as it comes. And then you have minimal choices to make. You're going to be able to select your enhancement based on who you're playing or just trying something different. Same thing with the secondary objectives. And then you'll have a couple of stratagems to add a extra little punch or flair to your army in the game. So first off, we have the Death Guard ability, Nurgle's Gift. So this is an aura ability. While an enemy unit is within contagion range of 1 or more Death Guard models from your army, it is afflicted. While an enemy unit is afflicted, subtract 1 from the toughness characteristic of models in that unit. So this is very powerful, as basically the closer you get to your opponent or the further on in the game you are, the more you're going to debuff their army, and subtracting 1 from your opponent's toughness is oftentimes going to put you at or above breakpoints, making it easier to wound them, and increasing your army's overall damage output. So next we have the actual Contagion range. So Contagion range changes over the course of battle. So in the first battle round, the Contagion range is 3 inches from your model's base. Second battle round, it is 6 inches from your model's base. And then in the third battle round onwards, it is 9 inches from your model's base. So as the battle goes on, the Contagion range gets larger and larger, making your army rule even more effective. So very cool army rule, and definitely transfers over to Big 40k. And next we have our enhancements. So your Lord Virulence model is your Warlord and has the Bountiful Regeneration enhancement. You can replace this with the Visions of Vileness. So you're going to start off with the default enhancement, Bountiful Regeneration, and this is going to go on your Lord of Virulence. At the start of the command phase, the bearer regains up to 1 lost wound. So already Terminators are extremely durable, especially in Combat Patrol. So if your Lord of Virulence is wounded, he's going to regain 1 of his lost wounds. So pretty strong, especially if you're running him on his own. A little less powerful if you got a Terminator bodyguard attached to him. And then the optional enhancement is the Visions of Vileness aura. While an enemy unit is within 6 inches of the bearer, worsen the leadership characteristic of models in that unit by 1. So leadership is important because if you do have to take a battle shock test and you fail it, you're not going to be able to be affected by stratagems. And then also your OC is going to go to 0. So a little bit more situational, but not a bad optional enhancement nonetheless. Overall, these enhancements are a little bit lackluster, but I don't think that's going to affect the overall performance of the Death Guard Combat Patrol. And next we have our secondary objectives. So you will use the Hand of Mortarion secondary objective, but you can replace this with the Overwhelming Contagions. So before the battle starts, you're going to choose your secondary objective. The default secondary objective is Hand of Mortarion. At the end of the battle, you score 3 victory points for each Terminator model from your army that is within 3 inches of the center of the battlefield. And your Lord of Virulence does have the Terminator keyword, so you're going to be able to score with potentially 4 Terminators, assuming you haven't lost any, for a maximum of 12 victory points. So depending on what you're going to use your Terminators for, and if you're going to be able to put them in the center of the battlefield and then keep them there throughout the game or get them there by the end of the game, you can score up to 12 victory points with this. If your Terminators get wiped out and your Lord Virulence dies as well, you're going to have 0 potential. So knowing that this is your secondary objective, your opponent's going to be trying their best to kill your Terminators, which likely they're already going to be trying to do anyway. And the optional secondary objective, we have Overwhelming Contagions. At the end of the battle, you score 12 victory points if you control both the objective marker closest to the battlefield edge and the objective marker closest to your opponent's battlefield edge. So this one's all or nothing. You get 12 victory points or you get 0. You have to control your own objective and then your opponent's objective as well. And definitely picking an all or nothing objective for your secondary is going to be swingy, but if you know this is your game plan, you can force where the battle is dictated at. Overall, both these secondary objectives are pretty good. I like that there's one where you score 3 points for each Terminator alive, and then one that's all in 12 points. And I think overall his secondary objectives are pretty decent. And next we have our stratagems. So first we have Sickening Horror, 1 command point. When at the start of the fight phase, target 1 Death Guard unit from your army. Effect, select 1 enemy unit within engagement range of your unit. That enemy unit must take a battle shock test. So it is the start of the fight phase, which means either your fight phase or your opponent's fight phase, and you basically have the ability to make them fail a battle shock test, and if they do, they're not going to be able to be targeted by stratagems. Unfortunately, because it is in the fight phase, at the beginning of your opponent's command phase, they're going to take another battle shock test or are going to automatically unbattle shock, so it's likely not going to affect the score. Next we have Inevitable Decay. So 1 command point, when your command phase, target 1 Death Guard unit from your army. Effect, until the start of the next command phase, add 3 to the range of your unit's aura abilities. So this one is pretty good because it affects a lot of different things. It's 1 command point in your command phase, and then it lasts for the entire battle round, so until your next command phase. And then it's going to make all of your aura abilities bigger, which means that you're going to have an extra 3 inches on your -1 to their toughness ability. And then also if you took the optional enhancement Visions of Vileness, that's going to add an extra 3 inches to that. So you're going to be subtracting an extra 1 from your opponent's leadership. So overall, not a bad stratagem as it affects your army's aura abilities, and that's like your key strength of the army. And then the last of the stratagems is Vomitus Salvos. 1 command point in your shooting phase, 1 Plague Marine unit from your army that has not been selected to shoot this phase. Until the end of the phase, lethal hit weapons equipped by models in your unit have the Rapid Fire 1 ability. So this one is a little bit more situational as it's only going to affect your Plague Marines. And then on top of that, it's only going to affect your lethal hits weapons, which in this case is going to be your Blight Launcher and then also your Bolt Guns. But considering most of your guys are armed with Bolt Guns, and then of course you have the Blight Launcher as well, having the Rapid Fire ability is going to increase your damage output and firepower. So pretty good stratagems overall, nothing like super situational, and nothing massively powerful, but going to provide a little bit of extra flexibility when needed. Alright, so next we're into the actual data sheets. So first off we have Shalgor the Putrid, and he is our Lord of Virulence. So he has a movement of 5, a toughness of 7, a 2-up save, and a 4-up invulnerable save. He has 6 wounds, leadership 6+, and OC 1. He has a deep strike ability, he has the faction Nurgle's Gift aura ability, and then he has Blight Bombardment. At the start of your shooting phase, select an enemy unit within 30 inches and visible to this model. Until the end of the phase, each time a friendly Death Guard model makes a ranged attack that targets that unit, reroll a hit roll of 1. If the attack is made with a blast weapon, you can reroll the hit roll instead. So pretty nice, as all you basically need is in your shooting phase visibility to a unit, and then you make all of your other units that shoot at it better. And then as far as the range weapons, he has a Twin Plague Spewer, Anti-Infantry 2+, which means it's going to wound all infantry on a 2-up. It ignores cover, which means no cover saves. It is Torrent, which means it automatically hits. And then it is Twin Linked, which means it's going to reroll its wounds. So it's basically a range 12 flamethrower. It gets a d6 shots, so you're going to have a random number of shots. On average 3 or 4. It has no ballistic skill because it auto hits, and then it's strength 5, re-rolling your wound roll, and then it has AP 1 and damage 1. So not a bad weapon. And then we have his melee weapon, the Power Fist, and it is lethal hits Power Fist, which means 6s to hit are going to auto wound. You have 5 attacks hitting on 2s at strength 8, -2, and 2 damage. So this guy is extremely durable. He hits pretty hard, he shoots decent, and overall he is probably one of the best leaders in Combat Patrol. So very good data sheet here for your Lord of Virulence. And I did notice that he actually does not have the leader ability, which means you're not going to be able to attach him to your units, so he's always going to be on his own, which actually makes his regeneration enhancement even better. Alright, and then we're going to have Septimal Fog, the Tallyman. So he has a movement of 5, a toughness of 6, a 3+ save, wounds 4, leadership 6+, and OC 1. He does have the leader ability. His faction ability is Nurgle's Gift aura, and then he also has Malicious Calculations. While this model is leading a unit, each time a model in that unit makes an attack, you can ignore any and all modifiers to the attack's ballistic skill or weapon skill characteristic, and or any and all modifiers to the hit roll. So a little bit situational right here, but he basically ignores debuffs on the unit he's attached to. But only some armies are going to have like debuffs like the stealth ability or something like that. So more often than not, he's not going to be doing a ton of buffing. He does have a plasma pistol, which you can fire either standard or supercharged. It is a pistol, and then also if you fire supercharged, it's going to be hazardous, which means after you make your attacks, you're going to roll a single d6, and on a 1, he'll take 3 wounds. Either way, it's going to have 1 shot hitting on 3s. The standard profile is strength 7, AP -2, 1 damage. The supercharged profile is strength 8, -3, 2 damage. So if you're shooting into something like Space Marines, you likely want to overcharge this, as you'll go from wounding on 3s to wounding on 2s. You'll go from giving them a 5-up save to a 6-up save, and you'll go from doing only 1 damage to killing a Space Marine outright. And then he also has a close combat weapon with 4 attacks, hitting on 3s at strength 4, AP 0, damage 1. So he's definitely a little bit on the underwhelming side. Probably not going to be a substantial model in your game, but in larger games, when you unlock his full abilities, he's very good to have in your army. And next we have the Deathshroud Terminators. So these guys are likely going to be the studs of the combat patrol. So you're going to have 3 of these guys. They have a move of 5, a toughness of 7, a 2-up save, and then a 4-up invulnerable save. They have 4 wounds each, a leadership of 6+, and OC 1. Their only ability is the faction Nurgle's Gift aura. And then they have really nice ranged weapons in the Plague Spurt Gauntlet. There's an anti-infantry 4-up, which means it's going to be wounding all infantry on 4s. It ignores cover, it has pistol, and then torrent. So it's basically a range 12 flamethrower with a d6 shots. It's only strength 3, but it's anti-infantry 4-up. It has an AP of 0 and damage of 1. So pretty good flamethrower, especially because you're going to have 3 of them on this unit. So you're going to be averaging like somewhere around 10 or 11 hits with these. And if you're shooting at infantry, you're going to wound with half of those. So you should be scoring roughly 5 wounds on infantry and forcing them to make some armor saves. But the real damage comes in melee. Each of these models is armed with a Man Reaper, which has lethal hits. So 6s to hit are going to auto wound. They have 8 attacks each, hitting on 3s, strength 4, -1, AP, and 1 damage. So this unit is going to dish out 24 attacks. 6s are going to be lethal, so average about 4 lethal hits. And then you should be able to do quite a bit of damage with these. So very, very nice unit, but these guys are super durable. And next we have the Plague Marines. So you're going to have 7 Plague Marines. 1 is the champion, equipped with a plasma pistol and power fist. 1 is armed with a blight launcher and plague knives. 1 is armed with a plague spewer and plague knives. And then 4 are armed with bolt guns and plague knives. So you're going to have a movement of 5, a toughness of 6, 3-up armor save, 2 wounds each, leadership of 6+, and OC 2. Their only ability is the faction ability Nurgle's Gift aura. And then just taking a look at their profiles, your Blight Launcher is going to have blast and lethal hits, which means for every 5 models in your opponent's unit, you're going to get 1 extra shot. And if you hit on 6s, you're going to automatically wound. With a range of 24 and a D3 attacks, you're going to average 2 attacks, hitting on 3s at strength 6, -1 AP, and 2 damage. You're also going to have your 4 bolt guns, which again have lethal hits, 24-inch range, and 2 shots apiece, hitting on 3s at strength 4 with 0 AP and 1 damage. And then we also have 1 Plague Spewer, which is anti-infantry 2-up, ignores cover and torrent. So this is your 12-inch flamethrower that's going to get a D6 shots, hits automatically at strength 5, -1, 1 damage. And then finally we have another plasma pistol with standard and supercharge abilities. And then moving over to the melee weapons, you're going to have 1 power fist on your champion with lethal hits. So 6s to hit are going to auto wound. He will have 3 attacks, hitting on 3s at strength 8, -2, 2 damage. And then we also have the Plague Knives, which each of your Plague Marines is going to be armed with the exception of the champion who has the Power Fist instead. So each of these is going to have 3 attacks, hitting on 3s at strength 4, AP 0, 1 damage. But keep in mind with lethal hits, 6s to hit are going to auto wound. So not a bad unit right here, durable with their toughness 6, 2 wounds apiece, and a 3-up save. But also they're going to have the 2 OC, which means you're going to have 14 OC with this squad, 15 if you attach the Tallyman. You have decent amount of damage output in shooting and then also in combat. And then keep in mind you're going to be debuffing your opponent's toughness if they get close. So they're going to go from toughness 4 to toughness 3, which is going to put you over the breakpoint for your Blight Launcher. So you'll be wounding most stuff on 2s. Your bolt guns and plague spears will be wounding on 3s. And then again in combat, the power fist should be wounding on 2s, and the plague knives will likely be wounding on 3s or better. So very good unit with stacking those buffs. And then last but not least, we have the Chaos Rhino. So you're going to have a move of 12, which is going to really speed up the unit inside. You're going to have a toughness of 9, a 3-up save. It has 10 wounds, 6+ leadership, and OC 2. The model also has a transport ability of 12 Death Guard infantry models, and it cannot transport Terminator models. Keep in mind that it will not be putting off your aura ability though, but you'll be able to jam all of your Plague Marines and the Tallyman inside. And then as far as range weapons, it is just armed with the Havoc Missile Launcher, which has blast, 48-inch range, a D6 shots, hitting on 3s, strength 5, AP 0, damage 1. And then in melee, it has its armored tracks, which are 3 attacks, hitting on 4s at strength 6, AP 0, damage 1. So with a move of 12, toughness of 9, 10 wounds, and OC 2, you're going to be able to put this thing on objectives after you use it to transfer your models around, tie up key units, do a little bit of shooting, a little bit of fighting. But overall, the durability of this is where it really shines. So you're basically just going to use it to keep your guys safe, get them where they need to be, and then after that, just be a nuisance. So overall, I would say that the Maggot Lords are a really good combat patrol. It's a very nice actual army to start off with if you're just getting into Death Guard. It's It's got a bunch of the units that you're definitely going to be including in your larger games. Its biggest weakness is it's a little bit on the slow side, but then it's made up for by the Rhino to transport your Plague Marines and Tallyman. Its biggest strength is probably its durability with all high toughness targets and good armor saves as well as invulnerable saves. The damage output is probably medium on this, but it has a decent amount of shooting. It's pretty good in combat and a nice range of secondaries, stratagems, and enhancements to choose from. So let me know what you think of the new Death Guard Combat Patrol. There's definitely some value inside this box, and it is an excellent starting point for anyone looking to get into Death Guard. And if you enjoyed today's video, got any value out of it, hopefully by now Tabletop Bros has earned your subscription. So yeah, that is the Death Guard Combat Patrol, the Maggot Lords, and that's it from the Tabletop Bros. Later!